And this is the big story that we're breaking right now. It's an India Today national exclusive. The first satellite photos that capture the Chinese build-up in the Galwan Valley of Ladakh. You've seen news reports of a big standoff between Indian and Chinese troops in Ladakh. Well, here's the proof of what China has been doing. The first satellite snaps of the Chinese build-up. This is the standoff in Ladakh's Galwan Valley, and these satellite pictures tell a story entirely of their own. Chinese tents and trucks are visible clearly. Chinese efforts to build their presence in the area is fully established in these pictures in response to Indian road construction and totally normal infrastructure work in that area, and this is how China has been responding. Even better news, there are pictures here of how India and Indian Army has been matching China at every step. India is fighting back and holding its defenses against the Chinese. This isn't the India of 1962. This is an India that is standing its ground. There have been violent brawls, but we're going to show you the first visual proof of what is happening there. He has been described as the young Australian with the secrets of satellites at his fingertips. Last year, he shot into the headlines for finding flaws in an app that betrayed very sensitive military data of US troops based in Syria. And this week, he has trained his very focused eye on Ladakh, where Indian and Chinese troops, as you know, are in an escalating standoff. The images he has obtained and put out on social media provide the first view of this build-up. It's the first visual proof of what's happening in Ladakh between troops of India and China. Nathan Ruser of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute is with us live from Australia. Welcome, Nathan. Thank you very much for being with us. Firstly, take us through what you have found, Nathan, in your images. We've seen many things. We've seen camps. We've seen trucks. Take us through what you've seen in these images.
Hey, yes, thanks for having me be here. Basically, on Friday, there was satellite imagery taken of the Galwan Valley area and of the hot springs area in the Ladakh line of control.
Yes.
So basically what we've looked at is the position of forces along that line and the build-up of forces. So in recent months, along the Chinese side in the Galwan Valley, there's been 3, perhaps 4 encampments set up, including one which is probably exactly on the line of control. It's about 500 meters away from the nearest Indian encampment. And it basically, it's a small camp of maybe a platoon of not more than 10 or 12 tents. Mm-hmm. But essentially, it's sitting almost exactly on the line of actual control between Chinese forces and Indian forces in the Galwan Valley.
Nathan, the images are very specific. You can actually make out, what you're looking at in those images. Are they consistent, in your view, with what is being reported in the media about what's happening in the Galwan Valley?
So a lot of the reporting comes from Ajay Shukla, I think.
Yes.
Talking about the numbers and the positions. And from what I've seen, a lot of what he's saying doesn't necessarily check out. So there has been an increase in Chinese forces within the Galwan Valley, mm-hmm. but it doesn't seem as though any of them have set up positions across the line of actual control. And the position that is on the line of actual control would have less than 50 troops rather than the 5,000 troops that is being said. But that being said, there is certainly an attempt to change the status quo from the Chinese side of the border. And the extent of the Indian road building on the Indian side of the LAC is quite small and largely a distance away from the actual line of control, whereas Chinese forces have set up encampment right on the line.
Right.
I'm not sure if I would say there's 5,000 in the valley. It's hard to estimate numbers from satellite imagery, but it looks more like a few hundred troops, maybe up to 1,000 troops, rather than the 5,000 that have been said.
Okay, so you're saying the highest you would go is maybe about 1,000 troops. Speaking once again about these images, because they're very evocative, especially the images showing the trucks, the camps, some of those heavy machinery, pictures as well, Nathan. How serious, would you assess this situation to be based on where the claim lines and, like you said, the line of actual control are?
It kind of seems as though China's trying to not necessarily be aggressive towards the Indian forces, but more trying to show that they can be by sort of pulsing forces right towards the line of control and letting India know that attempts to change the status quo in the region aren't necessarily going to just be accepted lying down by the Chinese forces.
Some of those tents look like they're durable tents, not just temporary tents, Nathan. And again, about the trucks and the heavy equipment suggest, would you agree that it appears to suggest that the Chinese aren't planning to pull back anytime soon? Does this look like this is going to go on for a while?
There doesn't look to be any there doesn't look to be any sort of solid structures.
Yeah.
In the encampments, and I guess if China put up the tents within a week, they can take them down within a week. But it does look like they're sort of preparing to stay for a decent amount of time. There's no immediate signs that they're pulling back. And actually, if you look further south to the hot springs area along the line of actual control, it seems as though Indian forces are building up and constructing actual permanent positions within a couple of kilometers of the line of actual control.
There have been reports of, very violent clashes. The Indian Army has acknowledged that there have been, violent clashes between troops, Nathan, not just in Ladakh, but also in Sikkim. But speaking specifically about Ladakh, the Galwan Valley, and Pangong So as well, would the proximity of these camps and structures being put up by both sides suggest that things could be more volatile going forward, given how close they are to each other now?
It's hard to sort of predict that, because you've seen a lot of clashes around the lake in the past that have sort of sparked from nowhere. But at the same time, when you look at the Doklam Valley region, there's Chinese and Indian forces within 100 meters of each other, and since 2017 there hasn't really been any escalation of force there. So the proximity of the forces, I don't think necessarily equates to the likelihood of there being clashes, but there certainly are Chinese forces within the line of sight now of Indian encampments, whereas before that wasn't the case.
There have been lots of comparisons, Nathan, between what's happening right now in the Galwan Valley and Pangong So, the Finger area, compared to the larger incursion that happened a few years ago in the Depsang Plains and in Daulat Beg Oldi in northern Ladakh. Obviously, also there have been comparisons with what happened in Doklam near Sikkim. Are there any takeaways in these comparisons? Have you had a chance to look at what those incursions, especially the one in Depsang, were like compared to what's happening now?
I'm not really an expert in the previous Ladakh incursions, so I probably can't speak to that too much.
Okay.
But one thing that I probably should mention is that looking at, again, from Friday, there was satellite imagery of the hot springs area further south.
Yes.
And it does look as though Chinese forces had set up a patrol route that did cross the line of actual control. Although there weren't any permanent positions past that line, it looks like there was a patrol route that crossed it by a couple of 100 meters.
Yes, absolutely.
And since that, in a response to that, it looks like Indian forces have started to set up more permanent positions to sort of monitor that section of the line.
Nathan, just to zoom out a little bit, because we're looking very closely at these amazing pictures that you've put out. There's a context to what's happening. There's a debate going on here in India over, why this unusual level of aggression being shown by China and this big troop buildup. Over the years, there has been a mechanism in place to sort out perceived violations and collisions of this kind, but this time it's perceived to be much more serious than that. Do you have a view about the context? There's this pandemic going on. China is under a great deal of pressure as well.
China's in a position where it wants to show a lot of strength to the rest of the world and its neighbors right now, after sort of suffering some weak economic figures following the coronavirus outbreak. And especially, even when you look at Hong Kong, they've put a more aggressive hand there than ever before. So I think there is a certain message that China's looking to send to the world and to its neighbors of strength. I think in many cases, because that figure of 5,000 troops within Indian territory doesn't appear to be true, I think a lot of the discourse surrounding this is escalating the pressure, whereas when you look at the reality on the ground, it's less of a serious situation, although it is still a clear show of strength by the Chinese forces and by Indian forces that have also set up positions within the valley closer to each other.
One final question, Nathan. You do look at Chinese activity a lot, don't you? Before the Ladakh build-up, I know that you've also looked at the treatment of Uyghurs in China.
Yeah. So in many cases, this part of Ladakh does border onto the Xinjiang region of China, which is a largely Uyghur population where over 1 million of them have been interned and arbitrarily detained in camps since 2018. So that kind of shows the speed and the willingness of Chinese forces to contribute and to commit to a lot of infrastructure development. Because across this crackdown, you've seen hundreds, probably close to 300 large camps being set up to detain these persons based on their religion and their ethnicity.
Yes.
So that's a large infrastructure commitment, and that goes to show how committed China is to sort of shore up power in these peripheral parts of their control.
Nathan Ruser, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for giving us your time here on India Today. We've put your pictures out as well, and obviously the debate over what's happening in Ladakh will continue. Nathan Ruser, thank you very much for speaking to India Today.
See you.
And from Nathan Ruser, who accessed those images, analyzed them and put them out, joining us live and exclusive here on India Today. First, now it's on to India Today's own top strategic affairs journalists, Gaurav Sawant and Abhishek Bhalla, both with us. They've both been tracking the Ladakh build-up over the last few weeks. Gaurav, to you first. Very compelling images coming in, from Nathan Ruser in Australia, who's obtained these commercially available satellite images from the 22nd of May, which provide the first visual proof of the Chinese build-up. Very interestingly, Gaurav, he says that the actual build-up is not as big as some of the reports are suggesting, but it does clearly show muscle flexing by China. And also very importantly, Gaurav, that India is matching China at every step.
Shiv, that's where you've hit the nail on its head. India is matching China, troop for troop, measure for measure, and infrastructure development. So all of this is happening, as Nathan very rightly pointed out, as you and Abhishek have been tracking for a long time. India in the past had ignored infrastructure development, especially along the line of actual control, and in the past couple of years there's a big push to build that infrastructure. Communication is improving, whether it's in Hot Springs or in Depsang or in Doklam in Ladakh, in Sikkim. In various areas, including in Galwan River region, India is building up infrastructure, whether it's roads, whether it's communication, or in some places, even permanent defenses.
Yes.
That is where the two patrols come face to face more often than earlier, and that is leading to a situation. But Shiv, none of the situation, like in the past, has escalated. We've seen a standoff for 73 days. This is just a couple of weeks so far. It could go on much longer, but there is a mechanism in place, is what sources in the government tell India Today.
Absolutely, Gaurav. Abhishek, the important thing to note here is that it's been nearly 3 weeks since this standoff was triggered, and there are no signs of it de-escalating just yet. The visual evidence suggests that China is digging in its heels, showing no signs of pulling back. Durable tents, lots of trucks, some heavy machinery as well, possibly some, bunker construction. So this looks like it's going to go on for a while, and that's why it's so serious.
Well, Shiv, it's been almost 20 days since the standoff started. The first clash took place on May 5. Till May 6 morning, there was tension and there were clashes. Subsequently, on May 9, there was another face-off in Nakula of North Sikkim. The area has been largely peaceful and calm over the years, but that was a clear signal that, new flashpoints are emerging as far as the line of actual control is concerned. While the tension at Nakula was managed, things turned peaceful very quickly, but things got de-escalated as far as Ladakh is concerned. As of now, as we've shown in the satellite imagery, something that we had been reporting through source-based information was that there is a massive build-up by the Chinese on their side. Also, attempts are being made at incursions, getting into the Indian side,
Yes.
arm twisting, intimidation. There are reports of some Indian troops being detained for a few hours. So all this has happened over the last 20 days. But the fact is that Indian army has not buckled under pressure. What I know is that road construction that triggered off this face-off has been halted for the time being.
Yes.
But the Indian army is not letting themselves back. It's not as if the army has retreated. Indian army has also built defenses. It's built fortifications and is giving a clear signal to the Chinese that they are not going to take this lying down.
They're not going to take this lying down. That's definitely one element of the message here. The Indian army is not going to take anything lying down. They're matching China troop for troop, construction for construction in that particular area. But we cannot ignore the fact that the Chinese build-up is definitely happening. Gaurav and Abhishek, stay with me. I want to take you through these images that have been put out by Nathan Ruser, who's one of Australia's best-known satellite imagery analysts with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Take a look at the Indian road construction that happened near the Galwan Valley. This was responded to by Chinese encroachments very close to that area, and the emergence of encampments and camps from the Chinese. They emerged as a direct response to the Indian road construction that took place. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, these are the first images of the actual standoff that you've been hearing about for the last 20 days since that clash that Abhishek was talking about on the 5th of May between troops on both sides. China is relentlessly building up force there. It has set up camps along different parts of the Galwan Valley. This is northwest of the Pangong Tso. Chinese have also been building up force by diverting machinery and troops from nearby field exercises. India has also moved in reinforcements from different parts of Jammu and Kashmir into this particular area. Remember, it is a high altitude area, and they've been and this is a very compelling image of the durable tents that have come up near the Galwan Valley as well. This is clear proof that the Chinese don't plan to move anytime soon. Very organized manner. Chinese trucks, heavy equipment, also very clearly visibly seen here, showing that this isn't just another face-off. This is something that could easily escalate, but is being controlled at the moment because India, as always, is matching China strength for strength. Gaurav, take us through what's happening at the diplomatic level. So far, the army has been silent. It is very clear that it is the External Affairs Ministry that is controlling all messaging and communication on this very sensitive issue.
Shiv, it's happening at multiple levels. So initially, when the fist fights took place, and it happened at multiple locations, which was a cause for concern.
Yes.
It does occasionally happen, but this time it was happening at multiple locations, which seemed to indicate that there was a wider pattern. Also, remember, this is the first summer after the abrogation of Article 370, the change of status of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Then there is a bigger story that's happening all around us. There's situation at the LOC with Pakistan. There is China. Then there's also Nepal and the Kala Pani issue. Many argue that's also been triggered at China's behest. So the dragon, which is facing a lot of trouble internally and externally, of course, because of the pandemic, is perhaps using this as diversionary tactics. Xi Jinping has lots of questions to answer internally. But as far as India is concerned, we've dealt with this many times in the past. Remember 2013, you, Abhishek, and I were reporting on the Depsang. We've reported on Chumar. We've reported on Doklam. Standoffs that have lasted anything between 20 days to 73 days. Or what you and I have read about, you, Abhishek, and I have read about Sumdarong Chu, which lasted years. So there is a situation. But the good point is, one, no bullet fired. mechanisms are being followed. Whether it succeeds or not will depend on how China responds and how India responds. There are many contingencies that both countries are looking at. Both countries are looking at contingencies, Shiv, and the message that India is sending across, whether it was Doklam, Depsang or now, is that we are strong and we are there to defend our borders, is what sources in the army tell us.
Excellent, excellent analysis there, Gaurav and Abhishek. Thank you very much for joining me. Abhishek stays with me for the next story as well. Here on India Today, no sensationalism. We tell you facts. We give you an official position. We give you our analysis. And as you can see, we're the only channel that's going to give you visual proof of what's actually happening there. So no blah, blah, blah. We're showing you what's actually happening in Ladakh. Thanks very much, Gaurav, for joining us.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.